The Madman!
Welcome to another card review with Trump. Got a lot of interesting ones here. So starting with Kripp Lord. So it's 3 mana for 7 stats with Taunt. That's pretty exceptional. Tar Creeper is a 3 mana 8 stat card though, with Taunt, on the opponent's turn, which is usually when the Taunt matters. Will Kripp Lord topple the Tar Creeper? Opinion is divided. Some pros, and they are the ones who pilot Token Druid a lot, so they would know, think that Kripp Lord will topple Tar Creeper. I mean, it has upside in the sense that it gains health. You let it live a turn, it's easily 9 or 10 health. So I definitely see this card seeing some experimentation in decks that summon a bunch of minions. Probably not so much in control decks, strangely enough, even though it's a high health taunt minion. The one attack is prohibitive, but right now in Token Druid, there's 2 your entire board buffs in Power of the Wild and Mark of the Lotus, and it's really good to buff cards that have low attack and high health because they have more survivability and you deal more damage. So Kripp Lord seems to be a great target for it. Stitched Tracker. People looked at this and were like, oh, 3 mana 2/2. Nah. But then you compare it to Cobalt Courier, and it's like, that's a 3 mana 2/2. So isn't discovering a copy of a card that's in your deck pretty good? And the counter to that is not currently in the Hunter archetypes, because most Hunters want to use the Steady Shot power and get down the opponent really quick. Hunters do have a really good minion though, Savannah Highmane. You can run a deck with not that many minions in it and get that Savannah Highmane very often, and it's really disgusting to play 4 Savannah Highmane in a game. Maybe Deathstalker Hunter becomes the control killer because he has the inexhaustible source of Build-A-Beasts, and 4 Savannah Highmane, that's pretty rough. So not gonna fit into your traditional aggro Hunter, and possibly too slow for mid-range Hunter, even though it's still very tasty to potentially go for more Highmanes, but certain aspects of mid-range Hunter, like those with not that many minions, so you can more accurately discover cards and control Hunter, I think they'll consider the Stitch Tracker. Ice Walker is 2 mana 1/3 with an annoying ability on top of it. Your hero power also freezes the target. You have to have a pretty annoying ability in order to justify being a 2 mana 1/3 card, and I think this ability isn't quite annoying enough. It also has the Elemental Tag, which is useful with the jnZaneHD, the Death Knight jnZaneHD rather, and also an Elemental deck, but I don't think that's enough. One really comparable card to this is 2 mana 3/2 Fallen Hero. Your hero power does 1 extra damage, and 1 extra damage is actually better than freezes the target in the early game. I can expect that Ice Walker, you probably wouldn't be playing this on turn 2 for any deck that wanted to play Ice Walker. So you would play it on the turn that you wanted to freeze something, and then you would Fire Blast it, and then maybe potentially you would have it still stick around so you could Fire Blast something again. But if you're late in the game, that's just 3 health on a 1 attack minion. Seems difficult for your opponent not to be able to deal with it if it's something that annoying. And even worse, if they can deal with it with a minion, you've lost the card for almost nothing. And if you really wanted to freeze a card, maybe you should just run Frostbolt or even Freezing Potion instead. It seems like even with freeze synergy, like thinking about all the potential freeze synergy that could still be in the set, this would probably be too slow. I don't think this is going to be the card that makes Shatter great. Freezing Potion didn't make Shatter great. Embrace Darkness. Priest gets a discount Mind Control. That's a 4 mana discount on Mind Control, with the slight drawback that, like Corruption, it's at the start of your turn you take control of it instead of immediately. People look at the start of your turn take control of it and are like, ah, blah, I hate that. Unplayable. But there's one deck archetype that could really use this, which is Control Priest. You don't want to play this card when you actually have minions, because the opposing minion can just, trade with your minion, and then you're taking control of a pretty weak minion. But in the right deck, which doesn't run very many minions and controls the flow of things with spells, I could see you playing this discount card. Getting a discount of 4 mana, and being able to cast a spell 4 turns earlier, at the cost of, 6, 7, 8 damage, 5 damage, 4 damage, it seems completely reasonable. I mean, Sylvanas was good enough to rotate out. Will Embrace Darkness make it? Also especially good on Death Rattle minions, because the Death Rattle effect is usually something you kind of want to avoid, and by Embracing Darkness on, say, a Savannah Highmane, it's better than killing it, because By killing it, you only remove 2 damage. By Embrace Darkness, you take 6 damage for a turn, but then you avoid the having to deal with the hyenas, and you get a 6/5. Finally, it's particularly good when combined with freeze, like Glacial Shard. We'll see whether or not that actually is a thing. Archbishop Benedictus. Boy, is that a card. 7 mana, 4/6. Shuffle a copy of your opponent's deck into your deck. A copy of your opponent's deck is the remainder of your opponent's deck, not the entire deck. So if the opponent only has like 10 cards left, you're only shuffling those 10 in. People look at this card and professional Hearthstone player, competitive player, and they're like, haha, 7 mana, 4/6, that'll never see play. And then there's the casual player who looks at this and is like, wow, that's ridiculous. You're shuffling a copy of your opponent's deck into your deck. In reality, I think it's somewhere in the middle between these two beliefs. This totally could have been a spell instead, right? You could have had a spell which just said, shuffle a copy of your opponent's deck into your deck, but instead of that, you're getting a 4/6 to go with it. You can kind of compare this to Tree of Life in the terms that it's a spell. Like, that could have gone on a legendary minion as well, and then you could have put some stats on Tree of Life. And I feel like that's what happened with Archbishop Benedictus. Clearly the only place that Archbishop Benedictus, outside, in terms of competitive play, could possibly see a home in would be Control Priest. But you know, there was actually a time in the Unguro tournament meta where the greedier and the bigger you went, the more likely you were to win. And Archbishop Benedictus is like the cherry on top, which makes your usual control versus control matchup like go over the top. And it's less committal than Dead Man's Hand from Warrior because you don't have to run 2 useless cards. Like, at least here you're getting a 7 mana 4/6. So there's the purpose of Archbishop Benedictus, to outgreed your greedy opponent, except asterisk you still lose to Jade because Jade outgrows you and would take too long to set up, and the exception of decks that out-fatigue your Fatigue Priest deck, since this one is basically trying to go for fatigue. So it's really cool from that perspective in terms of, okay, it has some competitive application, but ultimately it's mainly a fun card. Along those lines, it is entirely possible for 2 Archbishop Benedictus decks to match up against each other. That's definitely a thing that could cause an infinite game. But I figured that Blizzard was okay with it because it's specifically that matchup, and if you're playing Archbishop Benedictus, you probably want a 2-hour game anyways. Thrall Deathseer. Thrall is definitely more of an early mid-game Death Knight, where you're looking to build a board and then you play Thrall Deathseer to transform your minions into random ones that cost 2 more. And the hero power on it is transform a friendly minion into a random one that costs 1 more. So Evolve Shaman is totally a thing right now, where you have Doppelgangster and you play Evolve, and that's a good 6 mana combo. Now, the main problem with Thrall Deathseer is it's not obvious that it even fits into that deck, because the reason why Doppelgangster is good and the reason why Evolve is good is because that combo costs a total of 6 mana. And when you tack on an extra 4 mana onto that, that becomes 10 mana, and that becomes not very good. As well as 6 mana cards are, for some reason, exceptionally good. And 7 mana cards, it's not even that obvious that 7 mana minions are that much better than 6 mana minions. So we'll see whether or not this manages to find some unique niche where a half measure is better than the full measure of Bloodlust, or the short gain of Evolve. New most overrated card in the set of Gnomish Vampire. This card actually brings shame to the Hearthstone community because the Magic the Gathering community laughs at pretty much everyone who thinks this card is good. Magic the Gathering is a card game where as soon as you draw the last card in your deck and you don't have a deck, you actually lose the game, so it's even worse than Fatigue. And in that game, you had cards like, where the term mill even started with a card artifact called Millstone. And this is like the first Magic the Gathering card that we'll show during a Hearthstone review. But it's worth doing the comparison, because I used to play this card. I used to be that guy. So Millstone is an artifact that lets you continuously remove the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck, like mill them into their graveyard. Given that the Magic the Gathering deck is twice the size as the Hearthstone deck, it's basically being able to do Gnomish Vampire's effect every single turn. So Gnomish Vampire, in comparison, is like a nice, cute baby mill. It's not even worth mentioning. It's like, oh, that's cute. Sure, I'll just take the top card of my deck off and put it into wherever. That's fine. I do believe it is better than a 2-mana 2/3 because there are times where you're going to match up against a combo deck, and having the chance to instantly win the game if you kill their one combo piece, that's worth something. As well, there is the occasional game which actually goes to fatigue, and the fact that you killed one of their cards will come up. But the big difference is that this card does nothing if you're not up against the specific combo deck which needs exactly that card, and you happen to get lucky enough to mill it, or the game doesn't go into fatigue. In that case, it's a 2-mana 2/3. I think it's great that Hearthstone is willing to have more disruptive elements to it. Magic has a lot of disruptive elements between counter magic and like actual discard for only 1 mana. Like, you can actually look at your opponent's hand and be like, oh yeah, this card, it's going away. With Dirty Rat and with Gnomish Vampire, there's starting to be a bit more disruption. This disruption is limited to Warlock, which I feel like is a really good class to have the disruptive effects. That's a cool class identity. Also, to give you an example, I would very gladly remove the top 10 cards of my deck in an aggressive deck to start off with an extra 1/1 in play. But the most I'm willing to say is it's a slightly better River Crocolisk, okay? At the end of the day, that's what it is. The kind of comparison I was going to make on this is Gnomish Vampire might say something like 2-mana 2/3 Battle Cry, win the game in 30 turns. Okay, hold on, just because this guy annoyed me too much. It is a high roll card versus Aggro Druid. You want to get rid of Hydra and Living Mana. Against combo, if you get rid of a combo piece, GG, and against control, removing a Tyrion can be good, so it's a high roll card. Okay, wait, that actually didn't trigger me as much as I thought. It's true, it is a high roll card. In the sense that Servant of Yogg-Saron is a high roll card. No, wait. I'm still triggered. Even if you get rid of their Hydra or Living Mana, they could have another Living Mana or a Hydra right afterwards. No, that doesn't make any sense at all. It doesn't make any sense. It's only a high roll card against combo. None of you make any sense. Most of you make sense thanks to like being educated. But oh gods, is that a sub saying something? No, please don't be a sub. Please don't be a sub. Okay, good. It's just someone who cheered 100. Warlocks will still run 2 of because what else are they gonna run at 2? Maybe a 2-mana 2/3 that does something like Sunfury Protector. Like, just to name any amount of 2-mana 2/3s which have a slight beneficial effect. Ah! I can't walk away from this. This is something that personally stabs into me. Remember this when you talked about Dirty Rat? It's completely different! It's completely different! God, just die! Wait, I actually should talk about why it's different than Dirty Rat, though. That's fair. So, a fair argument is something along the lines of, wait, but Dirty Rat actually saw a lot of play. And that's like a 2-mana 2/6, which disrupts your opponent as well. What's the difference? Well, the main difference between this and Dirty Rat is that your opponent will tend to hold the big combo pieces in their hand. So instead of having a 1 in 30 chance of milling whatever card, you have like a 1 in 4 chance of hitting their Antonidas, their Alexstrasza, whatever, and you usually have an immediate answer to deal with it. As well, its stat line is better than the 2-mana 2/3, and it actually has applications against aggro, because you play the 2-mana 2/6 once your opponent has run out of stuff, or you even play it against an aggro deck, and you pull like a weak card from them, and you get a 2-mana 2/6, and that's good. But this stat is 2-mana 2/3. Okay, next. Val'kyr Soulclaimer. This card is comparable to Imp Gang Boss, which was a great card, 3-mana 2/4 from Warlock. Warrior tends to not have tempo to precede this and to follow up it. 1 attack versus 2 attack is a lot, and it's when the minion survives damage instead of is dealt damage, meaning that you're not even guaranteed a ghoul. So you could lead off with something like Animated Berserker, into Amani Berserker, into Val'kyr Soulclaimer, and if you did that, and your first Animated Berserker survived, then Val'kyr Soulclaimer comes into play as a 3-mana 1/3, which summons along with it a 2/2. And that's like reasonable for a 3-drop. And it has some more upside. It could summon more stuff. If you're self-damaging with whirlwind effects, then your ghouls are also taking 1 damage. At least they survive, and then they can trade as 2/1s. It's good trading. But ultimately, for 3 mana, you're getting a 1/4. I hear that's pretty bad. 3-mana 2/5, Mindbreaker, hero powers disabled. Really good in certain adventures, if they work in those adventures. 3 mana 2/5 stat line isn't bad. Oh, by the way, this is a good time to talk about how this is the expansion which has caused there to be the most number of cards to ever be in Standard. With this expansion, it looks like there's decent amount of cards where fair cards are probably going to be cut for good cards. So as general power level of decks rises, the 3 mana 2/5 becomes less and less good. Not that it was even good already. And the hero powers being disabled is a nice counter to Death Knights, but you certainly aren't going to run into Death Knights all the time. And by the time they play their Death Knights, a 3 mana 2/5 is probably inconsequential. It's time for Meat Wagon! Affectionately called by the community as Meme Wagon already. 4 mana 1/4, hey, that's stat line. We've seen that before on certain cards that aren't very good. The most obvious synergy then is you put it into a deck with 0 attack minions. Right now there's actually one decent target for it, which is Validated Doomsayer. If your 4-drop is pulling a 5-drop and you start with a 1/4, like, that's almost worth thinking about. But sometimes you draw Validated Doomsayer, which isn't a very good card, and sometimes you have the Meat Wagon get the Doomsayer, plus it's like a 1-turn delay because you have to run the Meat Wagon into something, and then you get your Doomsayer. It's just blah. So the other argument is you're supposed to buff this card, maybe with hand buffing, maybe with like a Blessing of Kings, maybe with Cold Blood, something like that. Even with Cold Blood, you could pull out Malygos, but it's a random minion from your deck, so you're not even guaranteed the Malygos. You could just get SI7 Agent or Edwin Van Cleef if that's in your deck. Seems way too inconsistent. If you wanted to summon a minion for the cheap, Born seems to do the job much better. It will be fun to see what you can meme with the Meat Wagon. Someday, if there's like a really high cost 0 attack minion printed, I could see the Meat Wagon being good. And no, it's not good with Alchemists. We're trying too hard to science up a reason to play this card. Phantom Freebooter. As soon as anyone saw this tag here, which said Pirate, everyone was like, "Wow, what are you doing, Blizzard? Why?" So 4 mana 3/3 gain stats equal to your weapons. Don't worry, it's not as gross as it looks because we compare it to Bloodsail Raider, 2 mana 2/3, gain attack equal to your weapons. You paid 2 extra mana to basically gain 1 attack for Phantom Freebooter, and you're also getting like the 1 or 2 health durability of the weapon that you're probably holding if you're playing Pirate Warrior. Where you literally curved out perfectly with N'Zoth's first made into Fiery War Axe, into the Bloodsail Cultist, and then into Phantom Freebooter. And even in that case, instead of getting your 7/5, you could have instead gotten a 5/4, which buffed your Fiery War Axe by 2, which is kind of like 7 attack also. Now the big difference, I guess, is that you don't have to play it in Pirate Warrior. Maybe it has some synergy with a big durability weapon, such as Doomhammer. If you play Doomhammer and then you play Phantom Freebooter, that's a 5/11. That's not bad. But then you have to be running Doomhammer, and what kind of control deck is running it? Seems like it has limited application, so don't be scared. Phantom Freebooter won't be destroying you. And if it is, you know, you always have Galactic Crawler, and Galacting a 4-drop is pretty good. Sword of Justice. Woo. It's like you say Sword of Justice exclamation mark, saying, "Whoa, wow, what a combo! Oh, that changes everything!" What? Here, I can name, like, I can also say a 2-word thing, which will be like, Light's Justice! Assassin's Blade! Brass Knuckles! Cobalt Scalebane. That's a really push the envelope card. In terms of stat costing, like, this is as far as you could take a card and not be blatantly unfair, I'd say. And it's neutral. I mean, it's like a 5 mana 8/5 if you play it with any minion on board already. That's pretty impressive. And if you manage to stick it around and it's got 5 health, it's pretty durable. So it's a dragon as well, so plus points. I think this dragon is good enough to warrant experimentation in Dragon Priest. The deck lacks a few dragons, so this dragon looks of high enough quality to throw into that one. In most decks, Creator would only fetch Primordial Drake, but Cobalt Scalebane also provides another option for mid-range decks, perhaps, who don't want to run Primordial Drake in them, such as maybe Mid-Range Hunter, They've got the Beast already. They didn't want to run Primordial Drake. Maybe they'll run Cobalt Scalebane. Combos with Wagon. We've got a beautiful little angel here. 5 mana 5/4 Sunborne Val'kyr. Give adjacent minions +2 health on the battle cry, so it has the potential to be a 5 mana 5/8. Obviously at 5 mana 5/8, it's really good. And even better than that, giving adjacent minions +2 health is like a fast effect, so basically like giving +4 of the stats as charge, which can cause you to have some really good trades potentially. The main problem is it's tough to rely on being able to hit 2 adjacent minions with it. Even on 1 adjacent minion, it's not bad. And it actually pairs favorably with Defender of Argus, since Defender of Argus is just 4 mana 2/3, so this one has 3 extra stats on it, and it's for +1/+1 in taunt. This one gives the same amount of stats and +2 health to adjacent minions. Comparable with the Naga Dark Scale, but slightly better because the +2 health preemptively means that future healing is more healing, as well as you can actually trade and survive, whereas trading and dying and then healing is not as good. Ultimately though, when you really compare it to Dark Scale Healer, you get this sense that, okay, maybe it's not that good. Dark Scale Healer is nowhere on the radar of playable. Maybe Sunborne Val'kyr is also not. And Necrotic Geist, 6 mana 5/3. You look at the stat line, okay, that text better be really good. Whenever one of your other minion dies, summon a 2/2 ghoul. Very comparable to Cult Master, but for 2 mana more on the Cult Master, you're getting an extra 2 stats, and you're getting ghouls instead of cards, which is arguably good, arguably bad. Where the Necrotic Geist really comes to shine is if you somehow manage to get it to stick, then you're permanently getting your ghoul army to keep killing stuff and then summoning more ghouls. So that's its main upside over Cult Master. Now, the big thing that probably dooms the Necrotic Geist, I mean, other than its stats, which are what do doom it, your 2-drop, 3/2, actually trades in Necrotic Geist and it dies, or probably more realistically, since you want to play Necrotic Geist when you can presumably protect it, you'd probably kill off your opponent's board, but then your opponent just, like, AoEs your board, or they use, like, a Frostbolt on it or something. Where was I? Another card that allows you to keep summoning an army and keep going at it is Kel'Thuzad. Now, Kel'Thuzad, for 2 extra mana, gave you an extra 6 stats, of which a lot of those were health. So that's a big deal, and instead of summoning just 2/2 ghouls, it replaced the minion, which is way better, because your minions tend to be better than 2/2. So Kel'Thuzad didn't really see very much play. It saw sporadic occasional play in even the big, easy, big druids of those times. Necrotic Geist, I think, pretty safe to say this is statted too weakly to actually see play, but it's just that the potential of the card was a lot, because if you manage to get it to stick, you do have an infinite army. So it's at this point that I dropped my usual hint. Got a big hint for you this time. I do have a card reveal. My card is pretty exciting, and it's going to be revealed on August 2nd, noon Pacific, on both Twitch and YouTube simultaneously. It's a doozy of one, so make sure to watch for that. Wait, what do you mean baited? That was a big hint, right? I told you the actual release date, and I told you I had a card. Okay, fine, I'll actually give you a hint. Let's see. It's a card you want to get with Archbishop Benedictus.